Recently I published a paper, it's called Oceans of Opportunity, a review of the Canadian aquaculture industry. Most people, they don't think about it daily, but the human population is going to grow by 30% to about 10 billion people by 2050. So we have to somehow feed these people. And with things like climate change affecting how we raise animals and crops on land, and our wild fisheries being essentially fully exploited, there's very few options for producing food. And in particular, it's getting the food to where it needs to be in terms of growing it locally. Aquaculture, 70% of the earth is covered in water, so it makes sense that we would look to fish and shellfish as a source of protein for the future. And it's an opportunity where we can certainly grow. And aquaculture is the fastest growing food production industry in the world. The title says there's oceans of opportunity. Canada has the longest coastline by far of any country. And if you exclude even areas where you wouldn't think that we can grow aquaculture, such as the Arctic, we still have the longest coastline by far in terms of that. Yet we're ranked 25th in terms of aquaculture production in the world. We're ranked 20th in terms of our fisheries. Even though we have this huge coastline, we produce relatively less fish than we possibly could. So countries like Norway, for instance, have a huge salmon farming industry and a much shorter coastline. I'm not saying we need to go to the density that we do in Norway, but certainly if you look at the percentage of the coastline that we use for aquaculture, whether it's salmon farming or shellfish, is very, very small. And even doubling it, you're probably still about 2% of our entire coastline that you're using. So we're producing about 200,000 tons per year. I think there's certainly opportunities to grow that, and it's not just me that's saying that. People in government have been looking at this in terms of an aquaculture strategy. The ministers of fisheries and aquaculture, the provincial ministers and the federal ministers have been looking at that. And one of the purposes of writing the paper is to highlight that, because people don't realize what the industry is in terms of what species we raise, how diversified it is, how important it is to the economy in terms of the number of jobs.